This is the final part of the interpretation of Robert Sapolsky's determined. One of the most frequently asked questions by readers after the preceding content is, if everything is determined, what's the meaning of one's efforts? Shouldn't we all just embrace a passive attitude? Why bother learning if it's all predetermined? As we mentioned earlier, clarity in thinking about every small matter is crucial to escape mediocrity. So, even if it's predetermined, the effort you put in, your love for learning, and the impact of our interpretation are all predetermined. The determined without free will doesn't mean a guaranteed admission to college or earning your first million before 30. It's not about the result, but the action, especially the choice. Determined means that, given the conditions provided and informed, you are predetermined to make this choice, while others are predetermined to make other choices. For example, intelligent and exceptional individuals, upon hearing the scientific principles we introduced, would immediately put them into practice. Ordinary individuals might find the principles somewhat plausible yet somewhat elusive. Shallow-minded individuals, when hearing about them, might mock. Only truths that are counterintuitively likely to be ridiculed are truths worthy of our speaking. Forgive my boasting, but I just want to emphasize that any chemical reaction in you, including thoughts reacting to other thoughts, is predetermined. Knowing the consequences of embracing a passive life, you are predetermined not to choose that path. Your current actions and choices are predetermined. When external conditions change in the future, the changes influenced by those conditions are also predetermined. The fact that you see a glimmer of light and want to explore it, eventually being changed by new things, is also predetermined. Sapolsky's precise wording is, change always happens, but we can't freely choose the change. Instead, we are changed by the surrounding world. As a result, our tendencies are altered so that we seek resources that bring further change. Because you know the consequences of a passive life, you are predetermined not to choose it. This is what determined means in this context. So, you won't embrace passivity. You'll continue living a regular life. But now that you understand the fact that humans have no free will, it might change you a bit. In my view, the most significant change is to respect human biological attributes. Sapolsky repeatedly emphasizes that willpower and intent are biologically determined. It doesn't mean these aspects are unchangeable, but changing them is indeed challenging. We introduced influences from seconds ago, days ago, all the way to genetics and societal culture. These are hardcore factors. To resist them, you must use equally hardcore means. It's not just about delivering a piece of information. You must provide a biological environment. For example, one intriguing training method Sapolsky mentions in his book is classical conditioning. If you play a tone to a mouse, it might be indifferent. But if you simultaneously shock the mouse whenever you play that tone, its amygdala will be immediately activated, resulting in a fear response. After several repetitions, if you stop the shocks and only play the tone, the mouse will still exhibit the fear response. The mouse has learned to fear a specific tone. This fear might be permanent, even if another mouse tries to convince it that the tone is harmless, it won't work. The mouse doesn't have the freedom not to fear the tone. Prejudices in modern society towards certain people or racial labels are not fundamentally different from a mouse fearing a specific tone. What if we reverse this mechanism? If a child shows interest in learning, what if you encourage them? The principle behind TV commercials forcing the audience to associate a brand with positive feelings is similar. They don't have the freedom not to be changed by you. However, some intentions may be impossible to change. Even traits theoretically changeable are often practically unchangeable. You might change someone's physique, but can you change their height? You might make someone who dislikes spicy food enjoy it, but it's challenging to make a conservatively minded person embrace freedom. Perhaps in some matters, we need to let go of the urge to advise and respect others' destinies. A more advanced attitude than letting go is tolerance. Biases against biological attributes like race, age, and sexual orientation are decreasing in modern society. We understand that these do not define whether someone is good or bad, they're just physiological characteristics. We now have more understanding for issues like bipolar disorder, ADHD, autism, realizing that these individuals don't perform inadequately intentionally, but because they have to. However, because we default to the idea that people always have some free will, we silently blame those. Like those who are not working hard enough. For instance, you might often hear the saying, being born poor is not your fault, dying poor is your fault. Is this statement reasonable? Perhaps some people simply don't care about poverty. Maybe some individuals do want to become wealthy but lack the ability due to circumstances. Maybe some people want to become wealthy and have the ability, but the overall environment is unfavorable. There's nothing to blame in these scenarios. Blaming someone for having a low income prompts self-reflection, asking yourself, have I worked hard enough over the years? Isn't that just speaking without experiencing it? Sapolsky once gave a lecture on brain science to inmates in prison. One of them asked him, my brother and I grew up together. He's now a vice president at a bank, and look at me. How did this happen? This statement might sound like something a middle or high school teacher might say to criticize a student, but Sapolsky didn't blame the inmate. Instead, he carefully examined the life paths of the two brothers and offered an explanation. Your brother's motor cortex and visual cortex in the brain developed slightly better than yours, enhancing his hand-eye coordination. This made him excel at basketball, earning him a college scholarship, while you didn't get one. It's this small difference that led to a butterfly effect, resulting in you being a criminal while your brother is part of the ruling class. Certainly, Sapolsky didn't advocate for the inmate to embrace a passive life. I'm sure he provided knowledge on how to train the brain. However, I find this explanation more valuable than training knowledge. It provides liberation. My misfortune isn't because I am incompetent. Of course, the concept of I is now under scrutiny, but at least, I now know that pain and self-blame don't make much sense. It seems unnecessary to blame myself for lacking basketball talent. And the inmate's brother doesn't need to be proud of his basketball talent. It's just a stroke of luck. Strictly speaking, if you firmly believe that humans have no free will, then no one should feel proud or guilty about their needs and desires being satisfied. Understanding this truth makes you a bit more humble. You might even free yourself from emotions like hatred. Do you hate it when it rains? You don't. The weather does what it does, it's not deliberately opposing people. Do you hate it when a virus infects your lungs? You shouldn't. Viruses don't have thoughts, they just act according to their nature. Would you hate the driver who cuts you off on the road? At least Sapolsky's wife wouldn't. Once, during a conflict with another car, when waiting at a red light, Sapolsky's wife got out of the car, had the other driver roll down their window, and then handed them something. Not a grenade, but a candy. You seem so barbaric, you must have lacked love as a child. I'll help you with that. Would you hate terrorists? Some Norwegians wouldn't. I'm not sure if this should be generalized, but at least, I detest terrorists. However, perhaps the Norwegians represent a more advanced culture. Realizing that others have no free will can elevate your attitude. But what about realizing that you have no free will? Does it lead to a lower stance? When we hear about having no free will, we associate it with just embracing passivity, showing that we are inherently good. Philosophers are most concerned not with embracing passivity. Sapolsky mentions several individuals, including the staunch advocate of the scientific stance, Daniel Dennett, who are worried that the awareness of no free will might lead to moral decay. If you don't have to bear moral responsibility for your actions, would you immediately go out and commit crimes? Firstly, those who commit crimes would be incarcerated in any civilized country, so even without moral responsibility, you don't want to break the law objectively. Scholars worry that people, without moral responsibility, might subjectively seek to do bad things, as the police can't always catch criminals. The preliminary results of scientific experiments are not optimistic. By initially shaking participants' beliefs in free will, then observing if they are more likely to engage in unethical behavior, the results indicate that those whose beliefs were shaken were indeed more likely to cheat and be more stingy. However, interestingly, those whose beliefs were not shaken, those who steadfastly believed from the beginning that humans have no free will and those who believed from the beginning that humans have free will, both exhibited the highest levels of honesty and generosity. Sapolsky didn't explain why, but I think it might be because those who believe in no free will tend to be more humble towards others and thus less willing to harm them. This book concludes here. Sapolsky raises a final concern, not about embracing passivity and immorality, but about life losing its meaning. If you firmly believe that humans have no free will, then love and hate, regret, and desire become irrelevant. People are just NPCs. Yes, you probably won't embrace passivity. You want more success. However, the so-called success in your eyes lacks any moral or honorable aura, and you might strongly question its real significance. So, the ultimate danger of the concept of no free will is falling into nihilism. On this point, I have a supplement. We discussed chaos theory, mentioned Wolfram's computational irreducibility. We know that the world is fundamentally unpredictable. The world might be predetermined, but even the predetermined is unpredictable. Pi is a predetermined number, but if you don't calculate it step by step, you can't know its billionth digit in advance. You only find out when you see it. Distinguishing between determined and unpredictable is crucial for our worldview. Perhaps we can only go with the flow. But because we can't predict destiny, life will always bring us surprises, giving us hope. Maybe this world has no other meaning, but it definitely has the meaning of satisfying curiosity.
If you feel there is value in this, please like, subscribe to this channel, and leave your thoughts or suggestions in the comments section. Let's grow together and read more good books.